Now, I know what you're thinking. You're seeing what's on screen and you're thinking, well, why on earth would I ever want to watch anything made by Dave and Dan after watching Game of Thrones? And you know what? I totally agree with you. To be honest, after Game of Thrones, I would never want to watch anything they ever worked on again. But just so happens they're working on a really interesting series that I know previously. So there's a book that this is based on. It's actually a series of books. It's called The Remembrance of Earth's Past. The first book's called The Three Body Problem. And there's also a Chinese TV show based on that book, and this is based on the Three Body Problem book as well. So I have already seen the Three Body Problem Chinese version. It's all on YouTube. I'll probably link it at the end of this video, a playlist that has the whole series. The whole series is on YouTube, so you can watch it literally for free right now. So I'm just saying that because I came in comparing that show to this one. It was almost impossible for me not to compare it in some places. But that's because it's mostly the same story, but it's tackled in a much different way. I mean, they're the same story, but they're pretty different. You overall get the same message from them, so I don't think the differences are that big. But there are some big differences, and I'm not really going to get into all that on this. That's not what this is about. I just want to talk to you guys about the Three Body Problem, the Netflix series, and what I thought about it. So this is kind of, it's not really my full review. This is just kind of my thoughts after watching the series. But all this disclaimer aside, I just want you guys to know. So I know the story. I know where it's going. I have experience with this story before, and so I kind of came in as a pretty harsh critic. Also, it's Dave and Dan, and I love Game of Thrones, and they ruined my favorite show. So I came in pretty harsh on it. And I'm not gonna lie, for the first little bit, there's good moments. Like the first three episodes, I don't want to say are bad, but there's a moment about halfway through the show where it really starts to pick up. The pacing is a lot better than the Chinese version, but the pacing is also bad in some ways, so it's not perfect. But anyways, let me get into telling you guys kind of what this show is about, and then I'll tell you guys what I thought about it. So Dave and Dan made it. The story is called Remembrance of Earth's Past by Chichen Lu. It's spelled kind of weird, but I'll put it in the description so anybody who's interested in the book can look it up. But yeah, so it's a sci-fi novel. I don't want to say much more than that. I don't really want to spoil anything for you. The story is really interesting. That's what's got me interested in all this. Is I loved the story that is told here. One of the weak aspects is the characters, but Dave and Dan actually made a lot of changes to the characters. But okay, let's just get straight into it. So we start off with the Cultural Revolution in China. And I don't know much about all this time, but from what I've heard about it, just the small little tidbits and what I gather from the story that I know from the book and the show, the Chinese version of the show, this is not something that CCP is very big on. They don't really approve of all these actions. I'm not trying to get into any political things, but this is something that happened in China and it was bad. And they use that as the start of this story, and it's the inspiration, not the inspiration, but this is the starting point. This is what pushes the rest of the story forward. So there's two timelines going on, and this is this girl, Ya Wincia, is the most important character. She is in both timelines. There's only a couple characters that are actually in both timelines. There's one in the past, during the Cultural Revolution, and there's another one in more. I'm not sure if it's present day, but it's definitely modern, and it might be a little bit more advanced than we are. But for the main backstory, you're mainly focusing on Yeah Wentz Yeah, but there's some other stories. There's some other characters who kind of play into that story, and you'll learn more about that as you go on through the series. But then this is what she looks like whenever we move into the modern day story. And she's very heavily involved. It's hard to explain any of it without going into spoilers. So I'm trying to hold back a little bit. But Yaz's story is integral to the whole story of Remembrance of Earth's Past, or the Three Body Problem, whichever you want to call it. The name of the first book is the Three Body Problem, and that is the name of the show as well. Um, but yeah, I think the young and the old actors, I think they both did a fantastic job. I was able to connect with them. One thing I really, in the Chinese version of the story, you get a way more in-depth look at, yeah. It's kind of weird. I don't necessarily feel like we need to spend too much time with it. The thing about this story is it takes place over a really long period of time. And there's characters in here that are it's kind of like if you're reading the book, it's more like reading a history novel than a regular kind of, character driven story. The characters are important and they have things going on, but the overall story is it incorporates a lot of characters, kind of like Game of Thrones, where there's a lot of people who are really important. Are their main characters? Kind of, in a way. There's a bunch of really important characters, and yeah is the first really important character. And I think the actor does a great job. And I know I said we didn't get as much of her backstory, but I don't necessarily think you're missing out on too much. Also, if you are interested in that, you can go watch the Chinese version. And that one's good too. It's way slower. This is much faster paced. It's way more digestible for a Western audience, if I had to guess. The Chinese version, there would be a lot of disclaimers on the recommendation for watching it. It's all in subtitles. It's really long. The pacing's friggin' terrible. It's got cliffhangers at the end of every episode, and yeah, you don't get that here. You are constantly moving through the story. So don't worry about that. The pacing's good, but you just wish you could focus on some things a little bit more. But overall, I didn't think I think they handled Yaz character really well. And that's good because she is if her character doesn't come off well, the whole story is going to lose a little bit of its tone. Okay. So anyways, in the modern day timeline, another thing that this is gonna incorporate, which if you've seen the trailer, I hope you haven't. If you haven't watched the trailer, I would say don't watch the trailer. Just go in and watch it blind. It'd be you'll experience your experience will be way better if you don't know anything about it. But so in the modern day timeline, there's like this VR device that they have, and it is I don't know if you've ever seen Sword Art Online or if you've heard about anime, there's a genre called isekai where the character goes into a video game. So you get that, you get isekai in the Three Body Problem. But it's a heavy story element. I mean, it is very important to the story, but it is not what the story is about, if that makes sense. They definitely use it as a tool for some cool shots, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. And the thing about the Three Body Problem is there's a bunch of different kinds of stories going on here. Like you've almost got a murder mystery, you've got a sci-fi, you've got like a historical drama, you've got an isekai section. So you're really incorporating a lot of genres. So you might like one thing that they focus on more than the others, or maybe you like all four things. I think most of the storylines work well, and there are things I would do differently, but overall, I think for the most part, this show does a pretty good job of incorporating every aspect of the show. One thing the Chinese version did a lot more, it focused way more on the like murder mystery aspect, but it also does not have near the CG budget that this show on Netflix got. The show on Netflix got the CG budget. They just handed Dave and Dan all the money they could, I guess. Not really. There is. I mean, if you look close, there are things that are off, but I just want to tell you that that's not super important. Like what you're seeing on screen is a cool visual, but that's there's way more going on in this story than cool visuals. That you are going to get a ton of cool visuals with this story though. But they definitely use the game and the fact that the characters can go inside the game to their advantage. And like this scene is a scene from inside the game. So it's kind of got like a low poly graphics for some of the characters. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed that. But overall the CG is great. I'm not trying to say it's bad. There are some shots. I don't know. I wouldn't say there's some shots that maybe you could do a little bit better, but I think overall the CG is pretty good. Uh, I will say though, even though I said the Chinese version had a smaller budget, they did. There's a particular scene. It's towards the middle of this series, but it's towards the end of the Chinese series. That should tell you how different the pacing is. But towards the end of the Chinese series, there's a similar sequence that happens. Once you get past like episode 4 or 5, the Chinese and the Netflix version take like wildly different turns. But the Chinese version does a particular scene. I think it handled it a lot better. I think the CGI looked a little bit better. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it again. And I'm thinking about doing like episode breakdowns of every episode of the Three Body Problem. I just kind of want to go in and really look at each episode. I enjoyed the series, so I kind of want to take a more in-depth look at it. And maybe if I've convinced you to watch this by the end of it, you guys will join me on that. But if not, that's okay too. I'm really just interested in the story, so I love comparing the Chinese to the Netflix version. So I'm definitely going to want to take a deeper look into this later on. But anyways, so the graphics are good, but I do think there's the Chinese version had similar scenes that I think maybe they handled a little bit better. So I don't think it was perfect, but it was pretty good. Now let's get into the characters. Okay, so first up we've got Augie, and one thing I want to say about the characters, this is where the most changes happened between any of the between the books and the show and the Chinese version of the show. So one thing really confused me. They switched a lot of the names of the characters. I'm pretty sure maybe one of the main characters got split into two characters. I might be remembering things wrong though, but it seems to me that one character got turned into two different characters. So we'll go into that more on the breakdowns when I've actually had a chance to research that a little bit. But first up, we've got Augie, and she is your like she's like the main character to start the show. Obviously, yeah, you're gonna meet Yeah first. But Augie is the first like main character you meet in the modern day that you're really following around. And her story is it really takes up more of the first half of the season. It kind of switches later on. Characters kind of take more of a focus depending on where you're at in the story. And Augie really shines at the beginning. She's got other stuff going on later, but her main stuff all comes at the beginning. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm more harsh on her character than anyone else because coming from the Chinese version, her character in the Chinese version I really enjoyed, and I don't I don't really think it's the actress's fault. I think it's a little bit of the writing. I just don't think it translated quite right. One thing I will say in the Chinese she is a male and in this one she's a girl. I don't really know why they changed sexes. She's also Chinese. But there's a lot more Chinese people in the Chinese version. One, because all you have is Chinese actors, and two, the guy who wrote it is Chinese, and the story takes place in China. And that's another thing. This story doesn't really take place in China at all, which I feel like is kind of a miss. Like I don't know. It just how many stories do we really have set in China? And this is a really good story based out of China. So I think we probably should have focused on that a little bit more, but it's not that big a deal. I think they made a lot of these changes to make this a little bit more palatable and a little bit easier to understand. Because there's a lot of big concepts going on here, and the last thing you need to do is be worried about who's this character, what's his name. Because in the Chinese version, I will say it's really hard to keep track of all the different names. I mean, all their names just sound they're not natural sounding to most Americans. Now, obviously, if you have more interaction with Chinese people, they probably sound a little bit more natural to you. But the whole thing is you've changed the character a lot, and I don't really think I like most of the changes. I didn't dislike her character, but she's my least favorite of the main characters, and that was surprising to me because I thought I would really enjoy her character. But once again, I don't think it's any of the actor's fault. It really seemed to me like the writing, and I also don't want to fault them too much for what the changes they've made. They definitely just wanted to kind of diversify the cast or whatever, and I think for the most part the cast did an excellent job. So I'm okay with most of the character choices. I just think Augie got done a little dirty. I think her character could have been a little bit better, but they're definitely making it their own story. So it's the same story, but it's got its own they've got their own twist on it. So I don't know. Augie, we're gonna have to see how it plays out for her character throughout the rest of the series. But I think she's not like irredeemably bad or like the worst character in the show. She just if she does more in the future, then I think I could change my mind on her. But right now, I did love her, and there were some other characters that I really did enjoy. So moving on, let's go on to a character I really did enjoy, Jin. Okay, so Jin was freaking awesome. It took me a while to come around on her, but she really doesn't start playing a big role in the story until you get a little bit you until you move a little bit more towards the middle. She really starts getting heavily involved towards the middle of this first season, and I think the show really picks up once we start focusing on her some more. The actor does a great job, and I also think so. I'm pretty sure Augie and Jin are split from the same character. I could be totally wrong on that. That's what we're going to talk about in the breakdowns. I haven't wanted to do any research until I got an official kind of review impression thing out because I wanted you guys to get, what I think. This is what I think. This is just what I think for this review. It's not even really a review because I'm not going that in depth. I'm just telling you guys, I want you guys to watch it, and I'm kind of trying to just explain it all for you. But either way, um, Jin did a great job. I really loved when we started to get more focus on her, but I'm pretty sure Jin and Augie were originally one character, and they've been split up into two. And I think I I can talk more about that once we have spoilers. Like if I do episode breakdowns and then I get to episode 8, there's gonna be things I can say then, because I don't want to get into all the spoilers in this episode. There's just not enough time. But I think some of the changes I really started to understand by the time I got to the end of the series. There were things I had problems with at the beginning that were no longer really issues for me by the end. So even though Augie and Jin, I thought they were both split off of the original main character. If that is the case, I don't really have a problem with it anymore. And I really like Jin. Yeah, let's move on to the next character. And this is actually the best character in the whole series. Saul. Saul is my G. Oh my gosh. I could not figure this guy out. I could not figure this guy out at the beginning. I did not know which character he was supposed to be. I could not connect him with any of the characters that I'd remembered from the show or the book. And to keep in mind, I only really know the first book. I know the general outline, like the second and third, and a lot of the bigger concepts going into those. But I have not actually read the second book, and I have not seen the Chinese version doesn't have the second season out yet. So I could not figure out who this guy was, but about midway through the show to about halfway through the show, I figured out who he was, and the character he is in the books is one of the coolest characters from the series. So once I realized who he was, all of a sudden I got way more interested in what he was doing. And not only that, but now I kind of want to go back and rewatch because I was kind of I didn't understand how big this guy's impact was going to be on the series. I really didn't know who he was at all, so I was kind of like, is this guy just some random character they threw in here? But no, it's not. He's super important, and he's he's a he's really good. The actor does a great job, and the story. I don't know, just his story and his actor is fantastic. So I really thought they did a good job with Saul. His original name is Luo Ji. That's his name in the Chinese version and in the books. And he is probably, I would guess he's most people's favorite character. I mean, I really like the main character. I can't remember the name of the main character from the Chinese series, but Luo Ji is a G. So Saul, he does a fantastic job. Let me look up this actor's name because I definitely want to give him props. Jovan Adepo. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but man, he really killed it. Also, I don't know if really got some Westworld vibes out of this guy. What's that guy's name? Bernard Lowe. Really get some Bernard Lowe vibes off of this guy, but if Bernard Lowe was also just like a badass as well. But yeah, so Saul, he was a great character, and I cannot wait to see more of him. And let's move up next. This is like the friend group. Okay, the last two people I've shown you and Saul, they're like the friend group. And next up we've got Will. He is also a part of the friend group, the main character friend group. And Will's storyline, I don't know how much of this is coming from the books and how much of this is original. It seems mostly original to me. I don't think much of this is in the books at all. But I think they do a really good job with his story. I'm gonna have to look more into him. It's been a while since I've watched the Chinese version or listened to the books, so I'm a little fuzzy on the details. But I believe most of this is just for the Netflix show. So I thought Will did a pretty good job. The actor did great. The storyline was also fantastic for Will. So it's something I really can't get into without going into spoilers, but I just think Will did a really good job. Let me look up this actor's name as well too. Alex Sharp. Alex Sharp. Will Downing. Yeah, so Will did a great job. Much props to him. Yeah, as I can't go into their characters without spoiling stuff. So I really want to talk about all their characters. So we're gonna have to talk about this show in spoilers in some way, shape, or form. But this is just I'm just trying to get you guys to watch. I just want you guys to watch this show. But anyways, let's move on to our boy Samuel Tarley. His name is not Samuel Tarley in the show, but this is Samuel Tarley. I mean, his name in the show is Jack Rooney, but this man is Samuel Tarley. Um, and here's what I have to say about him. He is here for one purpose. Once you figure out what that purpose is, you I can't say any more than that, but he is here for one purpose. Please let me know if you think you know what that purpose is in the comments. It is Game of Thrones related though. Okay, and speaking of other Game of Thrones actors, oh, but Sam did a good job. He was okay. Um, but yeah, let's move on. I can't talk about him anymore. Speaking of Game of Thrones, yeah, we got Sir Davos here too, the Onion Knight. And this guy is actually he is a pretty big deal in the story so far. So I don't know how much his character I think they've made some changes to the characters in ways that are going to make this series a lot more digestible. I don't think this guy really existed. Like maybe he did, but it certainly wasn't a big focus in the books, it seems. So he's definitely way more important in this Netflix version of the show. But I think Dave and Dan probably were just like, man, we really need to bring the Onion Knight back because God, can that man act? So they had to bring Sir Davos in, and this man is like he's a big dog. He gets used well. He is really important to the story. And he's got more going on than meets the eye. I haven't quite figured out what's going on with him yet. He certainly seems like he knows more than he's letting on. That's for sure. But he did a really good job as well. I mean, all the actors did pretty good. And his storyline is also pretty fantastic. Next up, other Game of Thrones actor, the High Sparrow. Yeah, so the High Sparrow's here. He's a bad guy again, and he does a pretty decent job of it. I'm not gonna lie, storyline was a little rushed, I think. I don't know. I just it didn't feel nearly as important as it did when you watch the Chinese version. This dude has a whole lot going on, and it feels very important. And here, it also his storyline does feel important. Don't get me wrong, like, and he has a very important thing going on. But overall, I just like I feel like the Chinese version did a lot better at this particular portion of the story. Um, Although I want to say there's another character that he interacts with that I hate. I can't get into without going into spoilers. I mean, like I can show you him and there's no big spoilers. I can tell you he's a bad guy and there's no big spoilers. But there is another character he interacts with, and I can't tell you anything about this character because it is big spoilers. It is huge spoilers. So he does have interesting stuff going on, and the character that he is related to, the character that he interacts with, they did a fantastic job with that. So he is very important. He plays off of that other person very well. So um, I'm glad he's here. He did a good job. He did a good job, but the most interesting thing about his story is not him. So yeah, I think the High Sparrow did all right. His name's Mike Evans in the show, which is actually one of the few people who got to keep their name. So good for him, I guess. I guess that was probably one of the few that was not was not that hard to pronounce. Other than that, I think yeah when Jia was the only one that also kept their name. Everybody else, oh, Dashi might have kept his name. Speaking of Dashi, let's move over to him. So basically, the dude from Doctor Strange, Doctor Strange's best friend, Benedict Wong, and he does great here. I mean, I know we all love Benedict Wong. One thing though, I could not help but compare this guy to the dude in the Chinese version. Of all the characters that I thought did not live up to their counterparts, Benedict Wong, and it's not because Benedict Wong didn't do a good job, but the actor in the Chinese version was a really really likable guy. And I don't speak Chinese, but he was cool. Like you watched him and you're like, man, that guy's cool. And I don't get that from Benedict Wong. He is not cool, but he is a good character. And I don't want to say he does a bad job because he doesn't do a bad job, but I he didn't do a better job than the Chinese guy. But the Chinese guy, he was the best character in the show. So, he's trying to match somebody who is doing the best work on the other version. So, don't sit here and think I'm trying to talk trash on Benedict Wong. He did great, but the guy I'm comparing him to just did he just blew me away with how much I ended up caring about his character. And they get into Wong here, but I really don't feel like you connected with him as much as you did in the Chinese series, but you get a lot less time with him. So maybe as the story moves along, that'll kind of we'll start to form that connection a little bit more. But as far as characters go, that's all the characters I want to talk about. I don't really want to talk about any more of the characters because if we talk about any more, they're going into spoilers. I can't hardly talk about any ones that we actually talked about without going into spoilers. Basically, this whole show is impossible to talk about without going into spoilers. And I really want to talk about it. So that's why I need you guys to watch it. Not only do I need you guys to watch it because I want to talk about it, but one, it's a good show. The first three episodes are really slow, but it really picks up at about 4 or 5 episodes in. And I don't want to say it's like super slow, but you're going to find interesting stuff going on in the first three episodes. And I was more harsh on those than you're going to be. Like, I had a lot of preconceived notions coming into this. I really wanted to dislike it. But I also wanted to like it because I like the story. But I dislike Dave and Dan so much that I wanted to dislike anything they worked on. But I can't here. I can find faults in some of the things they did, and we'll get into more of those on an actual like in-depth breakdown. But for this right here, they did a good job. They did decent, and they are bringing a really cool story to life. And the best part about this story, guys, unlike Game of Thrones, it's already finished. They can't mess up the ending because the ending's already written. Now, are they gonna make changes for the worse? They already have, so they will make more. But they've also made changes, I think, for the better, and they've also made some changes that aren't necessarily better or worse. They're just kind of changes for I don't know if it's practicality or to make it more appealing to a Western audience. I'm not really sure why they changed some of this stuff. And some of it seems kind of like pointless changes. Like it's literally changed for no reason. Like there's some scenes where we're set in England that previously we were set in China. So I don't know if there's like filming problems and if they couldn't get like the right location, they just didn't want to do it at all, so they just changed. But I just feel like it's a Chinese story. It would have been really cool, I think, to incorporate more of China. How many stories do we really have? Mulan? I don't know. But that's not really what we're getting here. And overall, that's really not the main point of the story. The main story has a way bigger message going on than where we're at, which location we're at. That those are small problems. Those are small things. They do not impact the overall message of the story, which I think the message of the story comes through really well. I think by the end you know where you're at, you understand where the story's headed, and you are probably decently excited going into season two. Maybe not as excited as you should be because there's no big cliffhanger ending. There's kind of, but there's nothing that's gonna be like, oh my God, I gotta get back to that immediately. Like season one almost feels like a complete story. You could watch it on its own and if you never got anything else, that would be okay. You wouldn't prefer it like that, but and there's clearly more. I mean, like it's clearly not a story that's done. But I think if we never saw another episode of this Netflix series, I would call it a success. Because if it got any more people to hear about the Three Body Problem, the book series, or just the story in general, then I think that's a good thing because the story is awesome, and I want more people to talk about it with. There's some really cool concepts going on in this show. You can't talk about them until you get uh, really to the end of the show. So, as if I was gonna rate this show, I'm gonna give it like a 7.5 to an 8. But it's like a strong 7.5 to 8. And this isn't a solid ranking. I think I need to rewatch it again before I really decide what I really think about it. But overall, it's a good show. It's better than most of the garbage on Netflix, so it's worth checking out. The story behind it is absolutely fantastic. So even if you say you come in and you don't really enjoy the show, I would recommend you check out the books and or maybe the Chinese version of the show, which I will try. I said I would do it earlier, but I will try to link somewhere in this video, or it might be in a playlist at the very end of this video. So, yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can experience this show. But I really hope you guys check this show on Netflix out. I really want them to make a season two. There's something that's gonna happen in season two that is gonna blow you away. It will be the best part of this show if they make it. So I really want people to go watch this and go support it because I want to see a season two. So I'm really just doing this all for me, my own personal gain. I really just want to see season two, and so I'm trying to talk you guys into watching it. I'm being a total shill for Netflix and Dave and Dan right now, and it feels real bad. It feels really gross, to be honest. But I love this story, and you guys should check it out because the story it's not like anything you've ever experienced before. I'll guarantee you that. You have not read a story like this. The concepts are sick. If you like sci-fi, you will like this because the sci-fi is the best part of this series. So if that sounds interesting to you, I hope I did a decent job kind of describing the series for you and maybe getting you excited for it. If you don't like sci-fi, I don't think you'll really like this, so maybe keep that in mind. I think you could give it a watch, though. You could watch it and see what you think. It is at the end of the day a pretty good show. The filmmaking is pretty good. One thing I didn't really touch on was the music. The music was surprisingly meh. Like I don't the song choice, like the actual songs that they used for the show were great, but the like original soundtrack, it's Ramen Djawadi, and that dude did Westworld's theme song. He did Game of Thrones. He did all the music in Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones has some of the best music of any television series of all time. I mean, any television or movie series. Game of Thrones has bangers. And we did not get bangers out of this OST. But granted, I'm the type of person that likes music the more I listen to it. So, maybe on a couple rewatches, some of this music will really start to grow on me. But overall, I didn't hear anything in season one that really blew me away, other than the song. There's a couple, like, not Ramen Dijawati songs, but just songs that they use for certain scenes, and not from the original soundtrack, though. And I thought those song choices were really, really good. But overall, good series. I would recommend you check it out. It's really cool if you like sci-fi. And I really hope it gets a second season. The second season will be even cooler than this one. So yeah, that's my thing. Check out the Three Body Problem. Let me know if you like it. I'm probably gonna do episode by episode reviews. That's I think how I want to do this. So I'll just go in, watch one episode at a time, and really break it down and tell you what I like and dislike about each episode. And then maybe at the end we'll do a total cumulative. Okay, this is what we really think of the series. And I'd love you guys to join me on that journey. But if not, this show is not for everybody. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you're gonna check it out. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like and subscribe. I'm a new YouTuber, so any likes and subscribes helps big time. It means a lot. It really does. So thank you guys for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, that's awesome. It's awesome that people actually watch these whole videos. Um, yeah. So thank you. Goodbye.